What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Javier. I got a standing desk and my head was kind of getting cut off on the camera. So I record my episodes with a video because I take some of the snippets and use them as promotional things. I need to do that more often, but so that's kind of what I do. So anyways, this next episode we'll be talking about is how to build a list of third-party vendors really, really fast. And so this is something. This is a hack that I kind of created myself when I was at CMI Mechanical. And so let me tell you what the process was prior to us to basically like what we were doing before. And then I came in with this new system and it literally lit this entire system on fire. And then we'll be doing the same thing at our current company with RatMate as well too, because we kind of have the same kind of business model as facility management companies. So if you are a company that has third-party vendors, okay, that you basically subcontract work throughout the country for like facility managers, this is the perfect episode for you to listen to on how to expand your network, because you're only as good as your bench, if you will. All right. So a lot of us have experienced this where you basically get a new project for, let's say, Walmart or some big facility management company or facility manager that has a lot of locations, and then it happens to be that there's probably a pocket where they have locations, but you don't have coverage to meet those, and you're like, yeah, we can take care of it, but then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, we can't take care of it. We're scrambling to get coverage for like commercial HVAC or commercial plumbing or whatever that is. And so you're looking to see how you get coverage, and you're like doing Google searches and you're doing all this stuff. That's exactly what happened to us at CMI Mechanical. So this was kind of the situation. This is prior to me getting there. They had landed J.C. Penney's, and then they had also landed the U.S. Post Office. And the U.S. Post Office was basically subcontracted to us by JLL, or now known as JLLT. And so what happened is that the JLL basically sent us these locations whenever they would get work orders, and they'd be like, hey, can you cover this and can you do this? And if you understand how the post office works, the post office basically does not have the most easily accessible locations for mail. And so I think I want to say, I could be wrong here, by law, the post office has to have one post office in every county. Now, keep this in mind, or maybe is it county or is it city? I don't know. I don't remember. It has to be like every county, but even like small counties that have like zero population almost, those are very hard to get to. And these are like dirt roads, small post office, hard to get to. And you're and so for us, it was almost impossible for us to get some sort of commercial HVAC person to go out to the post office and go do work there. And that was a big challenge. And so, and you might be wondering like, well, how the hell did you get this project? It's because we were able to at least figure it out. We would take on the project and we would just be like, all right, let's just figure it out. Let's see if we can get someone to go down there and do the job. And so we would, either pay more money, or we would know that there was like, Joe, the HVAC guy, didn't care where the hell the job was. He'd just go. And so that was kind of looking across the street to make sure my kids are all right. So that was kind of the approach on how we handled the outsourcing. So sometimes we would get work orders that would come in, and they would be in small towns where we didn't have coverage. And so we had a sourcer. He wasn't a sorcerer. He did all of our sourcing. And basically, hold on one second. Just got a message from my wife. And he basically, his entire job was sourcing commercial HVAC companies. And so he would do Google searches, and he would then, do like for those locations. And from there, he would start contacting whoever he would find on Google, and that would take hours. He would spend 4 or 5 hours a day just looking for contractors. He would research their website. He would research them a little bit. He would go in different places, and then he would finally call them. And he would do that every single day, especially in small towns. And so there'd be times whenever he had to get off of projects, and he would then have to start sourcing because a new work order came in for a small town or location, or somewhere that was just too expensive for us that we were using previously, so we needed to use somebody else, or someone that kind of like didn't do a good job. You guys that sub out these jobs like IFMs, you know what I'm talking about. You should relate to this. This is like, you're like, all right, Javier, I know what you're talking about. I get it. This all makes sense. And so, with that, what I'm trying to get to is that I came up with a solution that helped basically go where our sourcing guy, his name was Brandon, he would have 5 or 6 conversations per week. So essentially one a day, to where we got him to have 5 or 6 conversations per day. So we essentially, increased his capability by 6x, okay? And on top of that, not just that, he wasn't reaching out to people, they were reaching out to him. And so these commercial HVAC companies were reaching out to him, and they were scheduling time on his calendar. So he would go home after work, and he'd show up the next day, and he'd have 4 appointments already set up for the next day. Just show up. And he's like, holy shit, Javier, how are you doing this? I'm just leaving, and then I'm just getting appointments on my calendar, and it's just working. I don't understand. Like, what are you doing? And so this is it. So initially what we first did is, like, Washington, for instance, was a location that we struggled with. So we ended up buying a list of contacts of commercial HVAC companies, and we spent a lot of money on that. I want to say we spent like $1,000, maybe $1,500 for this list. And the reason we did this is because I think we were already struggling in that area, but we were also on the verge of landing another big company. It was either like Chipotle or like Advanced Auto Parts or like O'Reilly's, or I forget. It was a big company. And so what happened was that we needed coverage. And so we bought this list, and then we started emailing these contacts. So I'm going to tell you off the bat, if you're like, Javier, are you going to tell me that I'm going to have to spend $1,000 per state? That's $50,000. I don't have that kind of budget. No, I'm not telling you that. I'm just telling you what we did, okay? And I'm telling you that there's a better solution to this. So that's what we did. And then I got that list, and then we had emails in there. And then so I started sending out emails to that list. And it was cold emails, mind you. So we couldn't send it from like our current email. And on top of that, like, I think it was like 5,000 or 6,000 people on that list, maybe a little bit less. Like, we physically couldn't send an email for each one. Like, we didn't have time to do that. That was going to take too much time. Like, we don't have time to do that kind of stuff. So I started kind of looking into this, and I was like, all right, we've got to use, some other software to do this and expedite this. Well, then the other problem is that this list wasn't really, it was expensive. We're like, okay, it's kind of working, but it's not the greatest list, and this is a lot of money. And so it was just a pain in the butt. And so what happened is I basically decided to kind of just like, all right, I'm going to pivot on this. I'm like, we spent this money, we'll still work this list, and we'll still send out emails, and we'll still see if they're interested in getting some jobs and that sort of stuff. But let's see what we can do differently. And so I'll go back to the list that that we purchased from Washington. For Washington. Hold on one second. For Washington commercial HVAC companies, but it wasn't working out the way we expected. So what we then did is we started looking into a third-party scraping software. So I've used this software before in the past, and it's called D7 Lead Finder. All right, so write that down. The letter D, number 7, Lead Finder. Just Google it, D7 Lead Finder. Okay, and so it's a scraping tool. It basically scrapes the entire internet based off of industries that Google has classified these businesses as. So essentially, if you're a commercial HVAC company and you classified yourself as commercial, like HVAC, because commercial HVAC is on a classification in Google. So whenever you have your Google My Business profile, you can't select that. It's going to be just basically HVAC. So in that list, unfortunately, was like a whole bunch of also residential. But it is what it is, whatever. So what we did is I essentially took the top 10 cities of every single state. Now, some states you didn't have that many cities that you could pick from, like Wyoming, for instance. You had like 3 cities, maybe 4, okay? Because the other ones were so small that you wouldn't get a lot of traction. But like Texas, for instance, you've got so many cities there that those are huge. California, same concept. Florida, same concept. And so what I'm trying to get to is that what I did is I essentially used D7 Lead Finder. I typed in HVAC and then I did locations. And so I would just go to states. And so, okay, all right, I'm going to start off with, let's say, Texas, or whatever state we were just kind of struggling in. And then I would type in all the cities. And then what would happen is that this would scrape the entire internet, all of Google. Okay. And so if you had a Google My Business profile, if you had a website, if you had a Facebook, a Facebook page, whatever it was, if you had something like that, then basically what happened is that you would show up on this scraping tool that D7 would use, and it would have like information like your website, your phone number, your email address, and all this other stuff. And then so what we then did is we took that list and we would condense it and say, okay, if it doesn't have an email address, let's remove these people from this list. So we would extract certain groups. So we basically were able to get about 30,000. I'm going to repeat that one more time. 30,000 HVAC contractors throughout the entire U.S. And I don't even know if we got the entire, like all 50 states. But at the time, it was like 30,000. Okay, for like, I don't know. How much is D7 Lead Finder right now? Let's take a look. Let's type it in D7. All right, D7 Lead Finder. Let's see what the pricing is right now. It says $30, but I know I didn't pay $30. I was paying more. Oh, maybe they dropped their price. Oh no, here we go. I was paying about $100 a month is what it was, because I was doing 100 daily searches. So what I would do is I would take 10 cities, and then, I would take 10 searches and 100 cities basically in regions. So it'd be like 10 states or 5 states or whatever it was. And then it would basically give me a search for each one. So like if Houston, Texas was one, that'd be considered as one search. And then like Nashville, Tennessee would be considered another search. And like Knoxville, Tennessee would be another search. And like Madison, Wisconsin would be another search. So you'd put in all your cities. So I would write those down. And we would get a whole bunch of searches. And then what would happen is that we would get roughly X amount of leads per day. And what happened from there is we got them into a spreadsheet, and we ended up getting like 30,000. And everyone that did not have an email address associated with their company, we took them out. So we took from 30,000 down to 15,000. So we had 15,000 businesses that we could email. And then from that point on, what I did is I essentially took those 15,000 and I broke them up a little bit. Hold on one second.